Welcome into another episode of Tailgate Talk SEC. I am Will Thomas. Today we're doing SEC basketball. We're going to recap the midweek games as well as preview this Saturday and Sunday's games. I don't know why Florida and Bama are playing on Sunday, but they are. But let's just fly through some recaps real quick from the midweek, starting off with the Tuesday games going in chronological order. Arkansas at Oklahoma. Arkansas won 83-79. Darius Acuff dropped 21 points. He was once again the best player on the court. You had four starters for Oklahoma in double figures. Nigel Pack had 22 on 6 of 11 from deep. This was a really good game. Unless you were Arkansas's three-point shooting, they were only 2 of 17 from deep. Free throws and fouls were even. It was really close, really competitive. In my preview, I didn't quite put this one on upset watch because I didn't know how much of a effect that Oklahoma's home court was really going to have. But Oklahoma had a really good effort. And this absolutely was an upset watch game before Arkansas was able to pull it off and win this one. It was a gutsy win for Arkansas. It was because, seeing them tested on the road and being able to come through and win that game, that's very encouraging for Calipari and his team. So a gutsy win for Arkansas at Oklahoma. Kentucky went to Vanderbilt and I'm not actually sure that they did. 80-55 Vanderbilt, absolute assault from the jump. In my preview, I brought up how Kentucky has had cold starts on the road, and they were able to overcome it against LSU and Tennessee, but I didn't think they could do it at Vanderbilt, and then that came true. Tyler Tanner had 19, Tyler Nickel had 19. Kentucky just looks like a disaster. They had that inbounds malfunction that I'm sure all of you saw all over social media. They had 15 turnovers. Vanderbilt just bullied them. Mark Byington has that team now playing with a chip on their shoulder after they had that slow start to conference play, so Vandy looks really dangerous. It was a big-time win for the Doors at home against Kentucky. Missouri went to Alabama, and Bama beat them 90-64. I put this game on Sledgehammer Alert on my previews. Sledgehammer. Redstell had 21 points on 7 of 10 from deep for Alabama. LeBaron Philon had 18. Charles Bediako had 14. Aiden Sherrill had 16. Bama shot 39 threes. They made 15, but that is just classic Nate Oates right there. It's either going to be a layup or a three. What's crazy about this game, too, is that Bama was out-rebounded by Missouri, and they had 24 less points in the paint than Missouri, but they won by 26, so who really cares? That is an odd trend for this team to be totally whooped down low. Right, they win games losing down low because of how they play, and it's fine. That's a weird trend for me, how much they got whooped up on by Missouri. And we'll talk about it in the preview when they go to Florida this week. That's not good. But Bama, dominant win over Missouri at home thanks to some great outside shooting. Mississippi State went to LSU and beat the Tigers 80-66. Now, I was worried about the Bulldogs' shooting percentage going on the road because it was really, really bad. But they shot 51 overall and 48% from deep. And one thing that I did point out is that if State was going to, keep this game close, try and pull the upset, they'd have to use their rebounding advantage they had on paper and put it in this game, and they did. They out-rebounded LSU 43-24. So despite 9 more turnovers and more fouls by Mississippi State, they were up by as much as 27 in this game, and it was a dominant win for the Bulldogs. Tennessee at Georgia. Tennessee won 86-85. It so felt like I was right about this Mike White spot for most of the game. They shot better by 7%. They had a better free throw percentage. They had more steals and blocks, half the turnovers of Tennessee, and they had more points in the paint. But Tennessee had 52 rebounds. Georgia only had 27. To put that into more context, Georgia had 27 total rebounds. Tennessee had 26 offensive rebounds. They absolutely dominated the Bulldogs down low. And Georgia was close. Bluekin, they had a bad day. He had a bad day. Only 4 of 10 from the field, 1 of 6 from deep. Nate Ament dropped 19. Jacoby Gillespie had 21. And the end of the game, that Marcus Millender layup with half a second left down by 3, that's just things. It's things a poorly coached team does. I obviously don't like Mike White. I like him in spots because of his patterns of his career, but he's not a very good coach. And I think that the Millender layup, that happening in that situation, is a reflection of that. It's a poorly coached, not very well disciplined team. So they make a mistake like that to lose the game in the end. But a great effort from Tennessee, and Georgia was close to pulling off the upsets like I wanted them to. Like I picked them to. Texas at Auburn, 88-82 Tigers. This was a jungle game. In my preview, I brought up how the jungle was going to be so important for Auburn in this game. And Texas was up by as much as 14 in that first half. It wasn't great. But then in the second half, Auburn started to get it going. Texas made less threes, and the crowd really got into it to the point where Auburn ended up leading by as much as 10. And the box score is really even from this game, aside from turnovers. 11-3, Texas had way more. Auburn's defense was very active there. Keyshawn Hall is just absurd. He had 31 points on 7 of 13 from the field, 3 of 6 from deep, and 14 of 17 from the line. He is so good at getting to the foul line. Kevin Overton for Auburn also had 25. He was 5 of 7 from deep. Just a really good overall effort from Auburn. And to not, lose any confidence after that first half where Texas couldn't miss a three. And they were up by double digits. A really good showing from Auburn and Stephen Pearl's team. Florida at South Carolina is the last recap. My first note here is 95-48 Florida. No team in the league was going to beat the Gators off of that loss to Auburn. They just weren't. Florida shot 62%. South Carolina mirrored that. They shot 26. 43% from deep for Florida, 15 for South Carolina. 28 assists for Florida, only 4 for the Gamecocks, 32-3 fast break points, 54-20 paint points. Florida was just 1 point away from doubling them up. This was almost a 96-48, 48-point margin. Gators just couldn't follow through. I mean, awesome win for Golden and the Gators. We saw last year losses, they came out hot after them. They took it really personally, and those mistakes that caused them to lose that game didn't really pop up again. We'll see if that happens down the line here for Florida as well. But let's get into these previews for this weekend. Going chronologically here, the first game is LSU at South Carolina. You have both teams looking for a bounce back. These teams are a combined 3 of 13 in the SEC. I don't think that Carolina will lose at home again after that effort they had against Florida. Because LSU isn't like this big-time scary team coming in. They just got, really bitched out by Mississippi State at home. So I think that Carolina, they just has to be better. I'll take the Gamecocks in kind of a sad game. Kind of a sad game, but I'll take the Gamecocks over LSU. Texas A&M goes to Georgia. This is a massive game for Georgia. They have a 2-game skid due to the Bulldogs. They're a 9 seed right now. The Aggies are an 8 per Joe Lunardi. You get home Georgia, which comes with an offense that I do trust to get to like 85. And A&M also has one of the best offenses in the SEC at 91.8 points per game. So we could get a very high-scoring matchup here. A&M is one of the best three-point shooting teams in the SEC at 37.3%. So can Georgia get out and guard the perimeter and not let them fire away? Blue Kane, I brought it up in the recap section of this video. He was bad against Tennessee. He did not shoot well. Do we get a regression to the mean for Blue Kane? Does he shoot better? Is he more of a threat offensively? I want to take Georgia to bounce back at home after a tough loss, right? Because A&M, they have this game, then they go to Bama, then they host Florida. It's a big-time stretch for them. But with A&M having the record that they have, only being listed as an 8 seed, I said it in the first basketball preview that I did, I think, before last week, it seems like this team might be a little bit fake. And I think that they'll get a little bit exposed here on the road at Georgia against a Bulldogs team who is desperate for a win. So give me Georgia at home against the Aggies. We get Texas at Oklahoma. The Longhorns are favored by 1.5 here in the Red River on a hardwood. I like Texas. I do. I'm normally very hesitant to take teams on the road that aren't, head and shoulders above their opponent. I do not like short favorites on the road, generally speaking. I'm just very, very low on Oklahoma. They had a great showing against Arkansas in that loss that feels like it was, kind of their best effort. And I don't know if they can replicate that twice in a row, without having a win to show for it. And Texas is currently among the last 4 in right now, coming off that loss to Auburn. They're going into Norman knowing that they have to win. Like they need to start turning this around and start stacking wins sooner rather than later if they want to make a run at the tournament. So give me Texas to get a win at Oklahoma. Mississippi State goes to Missouri. This game features 2 of the bottom 4 offenses in the SEC. So A&M and Georgia, I thought was going to be high scoring. Opposite here. Missouri is one of the next 4 teams out. They can't lose games like this at home right now. Similar to Texas, they have to just be stacking wins. They can't afford to ever sleepwalk, ever fall asleep against an inferior team. You get Mississippi State, who is not in the field at home. This is a must-win. Let Mark Mitchell dominate, get Stone and Cruz looks outside to punctuate it. Give me the Tigers at home. Next up, Ole Miss travels to Vanderbilt. This game was supposed to be in Oxford, but because of the ice storm, the wintry weather in Ole Miss, they can't do it. It has to be moved to Nashville. So despite their slow start in the SEC, Vandy is still projected as a 4 seed. That kind of tells you what the national media still thinks of this Vanderbilt team despite their average conference record. And Ole Miss is bringing in the lowest scoring offense in the SEC to Nashville, where they take on Vandy's fifth best defense in the SEC in points per game. And the Doors, like I said, it's a team that's playing with a chip on their shoulder. The Kentucky game really proved that, and I don't see Vanderbilt dropping a game at home at this point, unless it was like, to one of the best teams in the country. I don't think there's any sort of sleepwalk factor for Vanderbilt, so give me the Commodores at home against Ole Miss. Kentucky at Arkansas. The Calipari Bowl again here. Arkansas is favored by 7.5. Arkansas is currently a 5-seed projection. Kentucky is an 8. And the Cats are coming off that embarrassment at Vandy. And they go to an Arkansas team who, on the road, just survived against Oklahoma. I wish that I could have faith in Mark Pope to kind of have this team turned around and galvanized and ready to go after that showing against Vanderbilt. I just don't, really. But the question for Arkansas is, sure, you had a close game. It was a scare against a worse team in Oklahoma. But they won. So do they take that as an alarm bell? Do they learn lessons from that game? Or because they won, is it fine? Is Arkansas a team that has to lose one of those spots to really have that turnaround factor and get going? We'll see. Darius Acuff is going to once again be the best player on the court. You get Arkansas at home, Calipari against his former team. I'm going to go with Arkansas here. I think they win it. I don't know about covering the 7.5. That line seems kind of short, and that's probably for a reason, but I will take Arkansas to win the game outright against Kentucky. Auburn goes to Tennessee. This game's going to rock. Tennessee is favored by 6.5 points. Auburn is a 7-seed projection. Tennessee is a 6. Keyshawn Hall and Nate Ament, Tahad Pettiford and Jacoby Gillespie, Rick Barnes versus another Pearl at Auburn. This game rules. It absolutely rules. But Auburn is 13th in the SEC in 3-point percentage allowed. Tennessee is 4th in the SEC in 3-point percentage made, but they're 15th in threes attempted. So they're very efficient from deep, but they just don't shoot that many, which isn't uncharacteristic of Rick Barnes' teams, but could they launch some more on Saturday knowing that they have that matchup there? They have a good mismatch from deep. And home court, I think, is massive here. Because in theory, Tennessee could be on letdown watch after that emotional win on the road at Georgia in overtime, but not here. Not with Auburn coming into Knoxville. And it's worth noting also that the Vols' last home game was that collapse versus Kentucky. They've been on the road since then, and they won 2 impressive road games. You get to come home to that Auburn logo on your home court. I think we're going to get a really good effort from Tennessee, and for Auburn, they'd have to replicate what they did at Florida, how well they played their down low, how violent that defense was. If they want to win this game, I don't think they can do that again, in a 7-day period. So I think Tennessee can put it on them. I like Tennessee at home here against Auburn. And then finally, a game that's on Sunday for a reason that I don't know, but Alabama goes to Florida. Obviously, in the past week or so, since Charles Bediako got approved, we had those Todd Golden comments come out of blah, blah, whatever. Who cares? We'll beat him anyways. Everyone's heard that, and that adds another layer to this game. But the Gators are a 3-seed projection right now. Bama is a 5. Does Florida do what they did last year and sort of turn a corner after a home loss? Last year it was Missouri. This year it could be Auburn. And Bama, they're coming off that thrashing of Missouri at home. The rebound battle here, projections. The Gators are top in the SEC in total rebounds. Bama is 3rd. But the margin per game tells a totally different story. The Gators are averaging a plus 15.5 margin on the boards. Bama is only plus 0.4. So the volume is there for Bama because of how quickly they shoot, right? How fast-paced those games are. But the advantage isn't. So they are bringing in all these rebounds, but that's more a product of how many possessions occur in a Bama game versus them actually being dominant on the glass. So I think that the Gators have the advantage down low there to beat Bama on the boards, and Alabama is the worst defense in the SEC. So the Gators will have one of two things happen here. They'll either be able to score in the paint like they want to, or they will get open looks from 3. They haven't been able to make good looks from 3. And if they're forced to in this game, we kind of saw what happened with the Auburn game. They made a few, but it just wasn't enough. When they couldn't score in the paint, the 3-point shooting wasn't there. Can it be there this weekend if Bama is able to take away the point? It's a big-time question. When the line comes out for this game tomorrow, I'd imagine it's Florida, truthfully, laying like 7 or 8. And I do like the Gators to cover because of how iffy their 3-point shooting is. I like the Gators to win. Because of how iffy that 3-point shooting can be, I'm not sure if I will take them to cover at that number. Obviously, that number is a total guess by me. But I will take the Gators at home to win. I don't believe they drop 2 straight in Gainesville. So give me Florida to beat Alabama Sunday afternoon. And that'll do it for the Saturday recap. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Tailgate Talk SEC. I have been Will Thomas. If you want some more basketball content, some more year-long college football content, I'll be doing all that. So subscribe to me here. Follow me on Twitter, and I will see you guys next time.